I'm Shirley Clay. I first came to NTCC as Shirley Pritchett. And I came in 1985 when they first opened, and I was hired in the month of July, really close to the start of school.
My name is Karyn Skaar. I came in 2007. I had been told by a friend at church that they needed an adjunct teacher, part-time teacher, and I literally interviewed 2 days before the start of a semester, and I interviewed with Dr. Clay. And she was Dr. Clay by then.
Yeah.
It's because it was close. I lived in Mount Pleasant, and I had known that the 3 counties were trying to get something started for a college. In fact, they had tried to start one in Mount Pleasant even years before that. And I'm for education, so it was just kind of a natural process to me to try. At that time, I was teaching part-time for another college in Mount Pleasant. And so I'm going, I like this. I think I could do this full-time. So I went and asked for an interview and got it.
So, see, I can tell you why I liked it here when I got here. That was because she was here. But I was told about a possible part-time position by Herb Rydell was vice president of instruction at the time,
Yes.
and I went to church with them and he and his wife, and he knew that they were short an adjunct. They needed somebody to teach face-to-face part-time, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to work yet or not because my daughter was only 6 months old. But Dr. Rydell's wife said that, actually, I think somehow Shirley said that I would be able to teach in Pittsburgh at the Hanson Sewell Center. And Herb and Lisa lived right across the street. I mean, literally across the street. And so she said, I'll watch your daughter. So I literally taught, 2 days, 2 classes back to back, so 3 hours. And I literally would park in the Rydell's driveway, drop my daughter off and walk across the street to the Hanson Sewell Center, teach my classes and go back and get my daughter. So it was the best possible way. And that's how I remember just things about NTCC. It's like they always made things possible for their people. Because I'm like, oh, I'd have to have childcare. Those are all things, they were insurmountable, I felt, for going back to work. But NTCC made it all work.
Mm-hmm.
So the change that I can come up with is the renovation. So prior to the renovation, my office was in math sciences. I did teach in this classroom that we're in. This classroom had been Dr. Clay's classroom. It was interesting. This classroom had 1 door, and it was scheduled to have 1 door when they renovated. But I actually somehow got 2 doors into the same size classroom. Everybody else has 1 door too. So that's a change, neither good nor bad, whatever. And my office moved from being in math sciences, I moved into the humanities building, which was convenient because then my office was literally right across from my classroom.
In the very beginning, things were very different. We were still putting chairs together the night before classes began in August of '85. And that was done by our mostly male faculty. Some others were helping, I think. But in the beginning, it was wide open spaces. There were no offices. So all the offices she's talking about were not here. That was a big open space back there where there are offices and the secretary and all that. It was one big wide open space. And initially, I was in this building back there at one of those desks. We had no partitions, we had no kind of privacy at all, nothing. In fact, if you wanted to say something to somebody, you went, hey, da-da-da, what do you think about, and are you working on so-and-so? Can we talk about, it was just stuff like that. And we did, we hollered all at each other, and it was very, I guess you could say comfortable, even at that point. actually, this is not a funny story, but we would talk about students that had issues, had kind of problems, and if he wasn't quite sure how he needed to handle something, we would talk about it, and I'd say, well, if you'll do this or say that, or, you know, you can open this door this way, and we talked about how to help the students a lot. We really did. People might have thought we were gossiping, but we weren't. We were dealing with issues that students had. He was the kind of guy that was very, very close to his students, and they hung around his office all the time. Even if they weren't in class, even if they weren't in the play, they hung around his office. And he was so good to people that, I mean, he was loved by everybody. And anyway, we were like best friends. We would go everywhere together. We shared lots of stuff. He did convince me to be in a play, and the first one he convinced me in, I told him, no speaking part. And I thought, that way I don't have a whole lot of stuff to memorize. Because I'm thinking, I don't want to memorize a whole bunch of lines. That's really hard for me. I don't want to do that. So he said, okay, I got a part for you. And I was a bag lady living on the streets, and I had to do one thing that had sound. At the very end of the play, I had to laugh and shoot a gun off. And I'm going like, I can do that. But during the play, I had so much stuff to memorize, it wasn't funny, because I had to be in some spot as soon as this person said this. And I had to be over here doing that as soon as this person said that. And I had lots of memorization. I'm going, I'll never do that again.
And when you're talking about what good friends you and Doug were, or are, I was thinking, you know, that was one of the things when I came in, it was being welcomed into family. I remember, so I really only knew Shirley because she was my boss. But then Shirley made sure that other people, well, I don't know if she made sure, other people looked out for me because Shirley was, I don't know, my boss is not the right word. Shirley was my person, my whatever, and so I became friends with Shirley's friends, and that continued even later. That's what made you feel like you belonged. They can call each other the oldies. I would never call them the oldies. Never would.
Yeah.
Okay, well, something that's, I don't know when Skaar Fair actually started, but I remember as an adjunct, and then as I was becoming full-time, Shirley was the advisor for Psi Beta, which is a National Honor Society, and one of the things that most student organizations participate in is Skaar Fair, also in October. Everything I'm talking about is in October. And I can remember going, because Psi Beta hosts a cakewalk, and so Shirley would be out with the cakewalkies, the walkers, whatever, but it would be children, and so she would be dancing. I think John Coleman was the DJ, playing like 50s music or whatever, and Shirley would be very appropriately dancing with children. 60s, 70s, yeah, and Halloween type songs. And I think Skaar Fair is still a community thing that brings people and lets them see what, or get a feel for what NTCC is like.
Always close. And there were people that seemed to be kind of like family. Because if you had a problem, you could talk to them and they'd say, well, do so-and-so. We did that with our coursework. We did that in our lives. We just shared a lot. So there was a lot of togetherness in that core group that began it. And we didn't want it to die, so it felt good for us, so we wanted everybody else that was coming in to do things. There might have been a few people we didn't care too much about them joining, but most of the part, they did. We liked them. It was good. So anyway, what I did kind of early on is decided I want to teach students about some research, and I actually wanted to do some research. And I got to looking at the reading level. This was pretty early on, and the reading level for this area was really, really low. And I do mean low, way below high school level. And I was hoping that it was not that low, but it was very low. And I started doing some research, and I kept the records. I would test my students for their reading score level or reading grade level. And then I kept up with that for years.
20.
Dang.
Years. And looked at the change in my students over the years. And it did change drastically. And at the same time that that's occurring, I'm looking at the statistics for the whole county, and they were going up. And I'm more like, that's telling me something. So again, that's why I really think education is something that's so important to this area, and it has helped us quite a bit. The college has helped us in a lot of ways, but that's one of them that we've been able to bring people up to a higher standard of living, in my opinion, because it's mentally, it's physically for some people, financially for a lot of people. So to me, the college has been extremely helpful in this community. And it's all three communities. I'm not just talking about Mount Pleasant. Other communities experience it. And we are even a little more far-reaching now, because I think you have some students from out of country and
That's true.
definitely out of state. So, there's more coming, and they're making a choice to come here.
For a rural school,
Yeah.
we actually have dorms.
Yeah, that's
Most
impressive.
community colleges are community, and that means they're commuter.
Yeah.
But students can actually choose to come and live here even if they're not from this community. Happy 40th anniversary, NTCC.